Hi, welcome to Something to Talk About. My name is Taco. I'm covering a pretty cool character. Good old Qarl Corbray. Yes, we have no art on him, so this is what I got for the thumbnail. It's King's Landing. If you don't know what's going on here, this is what's going on here. Go ahead and read this. I don't think there'll be any spoilers for the show because this character's from way back in the day during the reign of old, new, young King Jaehaerys, or as I just call him, Jerry. And yeah, so this is during King Jerry's reign, and it's pretty great. I love this character. It stinks that there's no art for him, and that's probably why I held it off this long. But screw it, let's cover him. And yeah, if you don't know what's going on, I hope you would have paused that and read it. You want to see it again, and keep in mind, I just do big long rants, no stops, no breaks, and yeah, let's get going. Lord of Hardhome. So Qarl Corbray was the Lord of Hardhome. I said Hardhome, and the head of House Corbray during the reign of King Maegor the Cruel and Jaehaerys the First Targaryen. Excuse me. Qarl wielded the ancestral Valyrian steel longsword of his house, Lady Forlorn. The rest of this is just going to be about Lady Forlorn. Because why not? I love Lady Forlorn. And lots of the rest of just that side. But keep in mind, this is Lionel Corbray from the main books. Great-great-great-great-grandfather or whatever, right? Like, this is a while ago, but this is his ancestor. Okay, cool. So Lady Forlorn is traditionally passed down from Lord of Hardhome to his successor, but there have been instances where the Lord lends the blade to a son or a brother for their lifetime. That's what happened with Lynn Corbray. And Lady Forlorn is returned to the Lord after. Lady Forlorn is has a heart-shaped ruby pommel, and the Valyrian steel of its blade is smoke and gray at appearance. Pretty cool sword. Up there in one of my favorite Valyrian steel swords. Definitely. Let's talk about House Corbray. House Corbray of Hardhome is a noble house from Hardhome, right? In the Vale of Arryn. It is a old but poor house. The ancestor of Valyrian steel longsword is called Lady Forlorn, which I just covered, and their sigil is 3 black ravens holding 3 red hearts on white. All right. The Corbrays were an Andal house during the coming of the Andals of Westeros. Corin Corbray conquered the Fingers by defeating Houses Brightstone and Shell, and then claiming himself the title of a Lord of the Five Fingers. When the first men began to unite against the Andals, King Rogar II Royce killed. Do you want to say that's Kyle? Qarl Corbray, King of the Fingers. So Kyle was a king. The Corbrays claim that Sir Jaime Corbray killed the Rogar in the Battle of the Seven Stars. Yeah, Vale, Andal, and First Men houses. You're always going to hear about the Battle of the Seven Stars, which was a gigantic battle with all these old legendary Andal and First Men kings, and yeah, crazy. We're not talking about that anymore, though. Let's get into time with Qarl. Aegon the Uncrowned. Sorry, I have a cough. So sorry about that. All right. After the death of his brother Aenys, Maegor the Cruel took the throne over his nephew Aegon the Uncrowned Targaryen. I'm just running through that. You guys know all about that, right? In 43 AC, while Maegor was in Old Town with his mommy, Visenya, Rhaenyra and Aegon took note of his long absence from the capital and managed to infiltrate King's Landing. And Rhaena was reunited with Dreamfire, her dragon, and Aegon finally claimed a dragon, his late father's mount, Quicksilver. And the pair then left the city on Dragonback, so they know they couldn't hold the city. They just grabbed the dragons and left, so they could then go raise an army. So then they go raise an army, and Aegon denounced his uncle as a tyrant and usurper, and then marched through the Riverlands, leading an army of 15,000 men atop his dragon Quicksilver. Lord Qarl, this guy who we're talking about, joined the host of Prince Aegon the Uncrowned at Pink Maiden's Castle. That's House Mooten? What did I say it if I don't know? Not Mooten. Right? Oh my god. There, I paused it. I went and looked. I was off. It wasn't Mooten. It's Piper. Okay. Anyways, didn't even need to say it, but I did anyways. So he joined him with House Piper rallying to his cause, right? The host marched towards King's Landing, but was intercepted by Maegor at the God's Eye. During the subsequent battle beneath the God's Eye, Prince Aegon's host was surrounded by several armies loyal to the king. Lord Corbray advised the young prince to attack each army separately before they could join their power. Though Aegon was loath to divide his strength, and the battle turned into a rout. Yeah, he totally messed up. Aegon's not a good commander. The battle turned into a rout, and the prince was slain on top of Quicksilver by Valyrian the Black Dread. That's this amazing art. You see little Aegon the Uncrowned, that little speck falling off of the dragon. That sucks. Where was I? So, though Aegon was loath to divide his strength, yeah, so he died. This video is not about Aegon, but I do have an Aegon the Uncrowned video if you do want to go watch that. The only notable casualties among Maegor's loyalists was Sir Davos Darkland of the Kingsguard, who was slain by Qarl Corbray with Lady Forlorn. So yeah, Davos Darkland was like kind of a badass. Not badass enough. So we learned right away, you don't mess around with Qarl, right? You don't tug on Superman's cape, and you don't spin in the wind, and you don't pull the mask off the Old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Qarl Corbray. That's how that song goes. All right. The young King Jaehaerys. About half a year of trials and executions followed, right? So this is after Jaehaerys takes the throne. Queen Visenya Targaryen persuaded her son to spare some of the rebellious lords, though they were stripped of some lands and titles and forced to give up hostages. So, Visenya Targaryen? I'm pretty confused by myself here, but oh yeah. Never mind. I'm not confused. This is before Jaehaerys took the throne. I'm wrong. So yeah. So Maegor's doing trials and executions, and Qarl was among the survivors that lived through Maegor's reign. So Visenya's like, you can't kill everybody, and one of the people they decide not to kill was Qarl. After the death of King Maegor the Cruel, the regent in hand added the regents in hand. So this is for Jaehaerys. His hand was Rogar Baratheon, and his mom was his regent, right? So they wanted to add counselors and officers to the small council as part of efforts to reconcile the armies of the supporters of his late uncle. So they're trying to mend the realm, right? So they wanted to take people who had allegiances with everybody and kind of put them all together to help rule the realm, so no one gets mad anymore, right? So they're actually a really good move that they're doing here. So, among those names were Qarl Corbray, who we're talking about, as commander of the City Watch, and he was a supporter of Aegon, and he was awarded a seat on King Jaehaerys' small council. So City Watch doesn't normally get to sit on the small council, but Qarl did. And if you're wondering why I didn't just use gold cloak pictures as like art, they didn't have gold cloaks. That was a demon Targaryen thing way later. So I thought, oh, maybe I could just use a gold cloak and be like, that's Qarl. It wouldn't have been accurate. It wouldn't have been accurate. So, yeah. So he doesn't have gold cloaks yet. They're just cloaks. So anyway, so he is named on the small council as like kind of mending the realm, right, as a commander of the City Watch. And then the other names were Edwell Celthagard, who was a former hand for Maegor, who got named Master of Coin. And then Daemon Valerion, King Jaehaerys' uncle, as Master of Ships. And then Pentheus Tully, a supporter of the Faith Militant Orders. He's just super pious, right, as a master of laws. We don't know if he actually supported the Faith Militant, but we know he's super pious. The small council helped Queen Regent Elisa Valerion and Rogar Baratheon, the Hand of the King, rule in the name of young king, who was still in his minority. He was still young. Lord Qarl was one of the representatives of the Vale at the Golden Wedding, which is the wedding between the Hand and the Regent, right? Alongside Lords Aaron and Royce. When searching for a bride for the king and wanting to honor late Prince Aegon's memory, Queen Regent Alyssa Valyrian considered a noblewoman from that supported Aegon against Maegor, such as House Corbray, and her husband Rogar suggested that house stayed relatively neutral. He's like, they were. Oh no, suggest a house that stayed relatively neutral. You don't know what I just said because I tend to garble up my words in a blender. But she's like, hey, we got to get Jerry a wife before he runs off and marries his sister. And Targaryens, incest. But they're like, oh, what should we do? And she goes, oh, what about a Corbray? And Rogar Baratheon's like, no, that's kind of pushing towards this side. You know, we got to stay neutral. Who didn't support anybody, right? So yeah, but of course none of that matters. So Rogar's outburst after the queen weds his own sister. Good Princess Alysanne behind their backs. Rogar was displeased. He was deeply upset. And they go to Dragonstone to stop it, but they get sent back unhappy. So I'm skipping over a lot of later many attempts to break up the young king and good queen up. Rogar makes a statement. So he's already tried a bunch of stuff at this point. And he makes a statement to the small council saying, we were fools to crown Jaehaerys. He thinks of only himself, and he will be a worse king than his father was. Thank the gods that it's not too late. We must act now and put him aside. This shocks the counselors and the regent. So Lord Valyrian asks if he has lost his senses. Lord Corbray, Qarl, who we're talking about, shakes his head and he says, my men will never stand for it. Yeah, everyone kind of likes Jerry. And Lord Tully asks if he plans to take the throne himself. Rogar Baratheon denies this and says that he will crown Princess Arya Targaryen. Grand Maester Bennifer noted that Qarl feared Lord Baratheon's. Yeah, Grand Maester Bennifer noted that Qarl feared Lord Baratheon's intentions and would result in another conflict that pit the dragons against each other, recalling the terrible sight of dragon against dragon at the God's Eye. So we don't know if Qarl actually thought this, but Bennifer notes later on that Qarl Corbray is thinking like, no, I've seen Dragons versus Dragons. We're not telling Jerry this. He's got a dragon. Like, no. What are you thinking, you idiot? And he is. All right, Rogar's not. This is his like biggest blunder. I actually really like Rogar Baratheon. So where was I? When Queen Regent Alyssa dismissed Lord Baratheon from his office. So yeah, that's when she fired him, right? Rogar refused and responded that no woman can dismiss him. And in response, Qarl Corbray draws Lady Forlorn and then replies a simple yes. So he goes, do you think a woman can dismiss me? And then Qarl goes, yes. Like, yes, we do think that. And he lays it on the table facing Rogar. Only then did Rogar concede. Qarl also hid Princess Arya under the orders of Queen Regent. She's like, yeah, we need to get Arya hidden right now so she doesn't get kidnapped from Rogar Baratheon, essentially. This keeping Sir Ronald Baratheon, his brother, from taking her to Storm's End with the departing household of Lord Rogar. Yeah, so they were going to try to snake her away and bring her to Storm's End. So Queen Regent Alyssa Valyrian's like, Qarl, hide her. And he's like, got it. So, yeah. I love that scene. That scene's really great. Now we're moving on, but that's kind of like one really cool Qarl Corbray. If you guys haven't noticed, this is one of those things when somebody is part of like 50 years of somebody's reign, and we get to see bits and pieces of them here and there. Yeah, he wasn't part of 50 years of Jaehaerys' reign. But yeah, that's one of those things where in the book we're learning about Jaehaerys, and just here and there, Qarl gets a scene. And here's another one. The Death of Septum. After King Jaehaerys I reached the age of his minority in 50 AC, although other members of the council were dismissed, Qarl Corbray was retained as commander of the City Watch. Yeah, he fired a bunch of other guys and brought in his own dudes, but not Qarl Corbray. After the death of the High Septum, who collapsed while climbing his stairs to his bedchamber in 54 AC, the most devout will gather and choose a new High Septum. King Jaehaerys had a pick of his own in Septum Bar, but Barth himself persuaded him against it. And the small council did agree, however, that they had to prevent Septum Mateus, from being named High Septum. He's like, yeah, even Qarl's like, we can't let Mateus do it. He hates you. For Mateus was a great opponent of the Targaryens. Yeah, he was the Septum at King's Landing when Jaehaerys went and married his sister, and he was screaming, abomination this, abomination that, we can't do it. So, and then he left. When Jaehaerys takes his majority, when he takes over, Mateus is like, deuces. He gets out of there, right? Well, no, I think he gets fired. But either way, Septum Barth comes in, and he loves Septum Barth. Everybody knows that. So the small council did think we had to get rid of Mateus, but they all have their own opinions, right? Rigo Draz said that they should bribe the most devout. Qarl Corbray and Daemon Valyrian advocated for a show of force, with Lord Corbray offering to lead an army to prevent the elevation of Septum Mateus, and Daemon wanted to send his fleet. And then Lord Massey, Master of Law, suggested that they just assassinate him. Holy crap. The king rejected the proposals, and instead he and his queen flew on their dragon. And then Septum Elfin, a fierce champion of the doctrine of exceptionalism, a former Targaryen propagandist, is chosen as the new High Septum. Weird. I just say, the dude traveled around like, hey, Targaryens are better than you. They're exceptional. That's why they get to marry their own sisters and stuff. And then when it's like, oh, we need a new devout, he wasn't even there. He's like somewhere else. And then young King Jaehaerys like, what about the guy who spread propaganda for us? I liked him. It pissed a lot of people off. All right. The Shivers, in a late 54 AC. So let's do math. So 43 is when the Battle of the God's Eye happened. So we go from 43 to 54. So yeah, just 11 years. That's not super long. So in late 54 AC, Princess, never mind. We go all the way. Never mind. I'm wrong. 59. So 43 to 59. Math. Let's do that really quick. 3 to 9 would be 4, 5. I'm kidding. I know how to do math. It's 16 years. I definitely didn't pause it to double check my math. 16 years. So we know that this goes for 16 years. This takes place over 16 years. So in late 54, Princess Aeria Targaryen claimed Balerion from the Yard of Dragonstone one morning, and then they disappeared and went missing for more than a year. Yeah, watch my Bennifer video if you want to hear more about that. Bennifer and Luke Strong, but mostly my Bennifer video will tell you all about Princess Aeria Targaryen. It's some sad stuff. So they disappeared, went missing, and then when Drogon returned to the capital with the dying Princess Aeria on his back, Lord Corbray was inspecting the east barracks of the City Watch. So that's where he was when that happened. I don't know if that's important to you guys. After Lord Miles Smallwood resigned as Hand of the King in 57 AC, King Jaehaerys wished to appoint Barth to the office, and when the king shared his wishes to name Septum Barth as his hand, Qarl reminded Jaehaerys of the cleric's low birth. He's like, yeah, but he's a lowborn. He's not one of us. He's not an important lord and stuff. Jaehaerys shrugged and said, if his father beat out swords in shoed horses, so be it. A knight needs a sword and a horse needs her shoes, and I need Barth. Yeah, he's like, yeah, but he's the best. The Septum Bar's awesome, guys. So when the deadly winter plague known as the Shivers struck the realm in 59 AC, Qarl succumbed to the disease. So he died. He died from the Shivers in 59. So yeah, this 16 years is a bit of a nice little bit. So yeah, he makes it that far into Jaehaerys' story. I loved. That's it. That's all we got. Should I Poochie's dead for you guys? I mean, I wasn't ready for it. Now I am. Or yeah.
Poochie's dead.
Some people like it, some people don't. Maybe I'll do a poll one day if you guys want me to retire Poochie's dead. Just very underrated. Yeah, no theories here. I honestly have been waiting to cover him I've been wanting to cover him for a very long time. He always sticks out to me when I go through Fire and Blood, which I do often. And he's a major part of the early reign of King Jaehaerys. And there just isn't any art of him, nor did it seem like he wanted me to cover him. But dang it, I like this guy, so I did it. Yeah, that's it. There's no theory. I literally couldn't find anything interesting. Anything interesting. I couldn't find any theories or anything like that on Qarl Corbray, and no one really has requested him either. This is just when I go through it, I keep hearing the name Qarl Corbray, and I like the idea that he was around. He helped Aegon the Uncrowned, and then he's like literally there all the way up. He's one of the few guys that gets retained in the Jaehaerys' into the small council. He's not a member of the small council, but he gets to be part of the meetings, right? He's not a master of anything. He's a city watch. I just like Qarl Corbray. He seemed like a cool guy. That's it. So thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, please click like and subscribe. Tell me what you thought of Qarl Corbray. And yeah, peace.